You wake up to silence. Not the comfortable silence of a lazy Sunday morning, but the oppressive silence of a world that has fundamentally changed overnight. The digital clock beside your bed reads 7:23 a.m., but something feels different. There's a weight in your chest, a knowledge that wasn't there when you went to sleep. You sit up slowly, and as you do, words appear in the corner of your vision like a translucent overlay. Words remaining. 100. The numbers glow with an ethereal blue light that seems to pulse with your heartbeat. You blink hard, thinking it's some kind of hallucination, perhaps a lingering dream. But the counter remains, persistent and undeniable. You open your mouth to call out, maybe to shout for help, or to test if this is real, but something stops you. An instinct, deep and primal, warns you that speaking now might be the worst mistake of your life. Instead, you slide out of bed carefully, your bare feet touching the cold hardwood floor. The house around you is eerily quiet. No hum of the refrigerator, no distant traffic, no birds chirping outside. It's as if the entire world is holding its breath. You move toward the window, each step deliberate and measured. Outside, the neighborhood looks exactly as it did yesterday. Mrs. Chun's roses still bloom in perfect rows. The newspaper still lies on the Hendersons' driveway, and the old oak tree still casts its familiar shadow across your front lawn. But there are no people, no joggers, no dog walkers, no children waiting for the school bus. The suburban street that was usually alive with morning activity is now a tableau of abandonment. You press your palm against the cool glass and notice something that makes your blood run cold. In the condensation of your breath on the window, words begin to form on their own. Everyone starts with 100. Use them wisely. The message fades as quickly as it appeared, leaving you staring at your own reflection. You look the same as you did yesterday, but your eyes hold a new knowledge, a terrible understanding that your life has been reduced to a countdown. You turn away from the window and begin to explore your house, moving through rooms that feel both familiar and alien. In the kitchen, you notice that all the clocks have stopped at exactly 7 a.m. The coffee maker sits silent, its digital display blank. The television won't turn on, and your phone shows no signal bars. Just a message that reads, "Emergency protocols in effect." You open the refrigerator and find it fully stocked, as if someone knew you'd need to ration more than just words. There's enough food for weeks, maybe months. The milk is fresh, the vegetables crisp, and there's a note tucked behind the orange juice written in handwriting you don't recognize. Sustenance will not be your concern. Choose your words like you're choosing your last breath, because you are. Your hands tremble as you fold the note and slip it into your pocket. The counter in your vision hasn't changed. Still 100 words remaining. Still time to think, to plan, to understand what's happening. You walk to your front door and place your hand on the knob, hesitating. What if opening it costs a word? What if the act of turning the handle somehow triggers this cosmic countdown? But you need to know what's beyond your walls. Need to understand the scope of this strange new reality. You turn the knob slowly, and the door opens without incident. The counter remains at 100. Outside, the morning air carries an unusual stillness, as if even the wind is afraid to make noise. You step onto your porch and immediately notice something extraordinary. There are others, but they're not moving. All along the street, you can see your neighbors frozen in various poses. Mr. Patterson stands by his mailbox, his hand extended toward the metal door, but not quite touching it. Sarah from 3 houses down is mid-stride on her morning jog, one foot lifted off the ground, her ponytail suspended in impossible defiance of gravity. They're not statues, though. You can see the subtle rise and fall of their chests, the almost imperceptible movement of their eyes. They're thinking, processing, understanding their situation, just as you are. You realize that everyone is facing the same terrible choice. Speak and potentially waste precious words, or remain silent and try to understand the rules of this new existence. You step carefully off your porch and begin walking down the sidewalk, observing the frozen tableau of your neighborhood. Each person seems caught in the moment they discovered their predicament, their faces reflecting a spectrum of emotions, from confusion to terror to grim determination. Some have their mouths slightly open, as if they were about to speak when the weight of their situation struck them silent. As you walk, you notice details you never paid attention to before. The way morning light filters through the leaves creates intricate patterns on the pavement. The smell of honeysuckle from the Williamses' garden seems more intense, more precious somehow. Colors appear more vivid, as if your heightened awareness of mortality has sharpened all your senses. You understand now that this might be the last time you experience these simple pleasures, and the thought fills you with both sadness and a strange kind of gratitude. You come to the end of your street and face a choice. To your left, the road leads toward downtown, toward the possibility of finding answers or other people who might understand what's happening. To your right, it leads to the park where you used to walk your dog before she passed away last year. Straight ahead lies the highway that connects your small town to the larger world beyond. Each direction represents different possibilities, different ways to spend whatever time you have left. You close your eyes and try to think logically about your situation. The counter still reads 100 words remaining. You haven't spoken yet, haven't even whispered to yourself. But you wonder if there are other ways to lose words. What about singing? Humming? What if you mouth words without making sound? The rules of this cosmic game are unclear, and the uncertainty is almost as terrifying as the countdown itself. You decide to test a theory. Very carefully, you mouth the word hello without making any sound. The counter doesn't change. Relief washes over you. At least you can practice, can work through what you want to say before you actually say it. You turn left toward downtown, walking slowly and deliberately. With each step, you notice more frozen people. A postal worker stands beside his truck, a bundle of mail in his hands. 2 children wait at a bus stop, their backpacks slung over their shoulders, their faces turned toward the sky as if they were watching for something that never came. An elderly woman sits on a bench, a book open in her lap, her finger poised to turn the page. The scene is beautiful and heartbreaking, a snapshot of ordinary life interrupted by extraordinary circumstances. The downtown area reveals the full scope of the situation. Cars are stopped in the middle of intersections, their drivers visible through windshields, hands gripping steering wheels with white knuckles. A businessman stands outside the bank, his phone pressed to his ear, his mouth open in a conversation that will never be completed. The morning coffee rush at Stella's Cafe has been preserved like an insect in amber, customers and baristas frozen in the ritual of caffeine and commerce. The silence is profound and unsettling, broken only by the sound of your footsteps on the pavement. You enter the cafe, the door chiming softly as it swings shut behind you. The familiar smell of coffee and fresh pastries fills your nostrils, but the warmth and chatter that usually define this space are absent. Behind the counter, Maria, the owner, stands with a coffee pot in her hand, her face etched with the same confusion and fear you've seen on everyone else. Her eyes track your movement as you walk through her establishment, and you can see her struggling with the same decision you face. Speak and risk everything, or remain silent and hope for understanding. You walk to the community bulletin board, hoping to find some explanation or instruction about what's happening. Among the usual advertisements for yoga classes and lost pets, you find something new. A single sheet of white paper with elegant handwriting that seems to glow faintly. The great silence has begun. Humanity has been given a gift and a test. Each person has exactly 100 words to speak before their life ends. Use them to say what matters most. Use them to connect with others. Use them to leave something beautiful in the world. When the last word is spoken by the last person, a new chapter of existence will begin. Choose wisely. The message is unsigned, but something about the handwriting feels ancient, as if it was written by someone who has watched civilizations rise and fall. You read it 3 more times, memorizing every word, every curve of the letters. This is not a curse or a punishment, but a test of human nature. What would people choose to say if they knew their words were limited? Would they waste them on anger and blame? Or would they find a way to distill the essence of human experience into 100 carefully chosen syllables? You leave the cafe and continue exploring downtown, each step revealing more frozen moments of human life. Outside the library, a young mother reads to her toddler, both of them caught in the eternal moment of shared story. In the park, an elderly couple sits on a bench, their hands clasped together, their faces peaceful despite the cosmic interruption of their morning walk. Everywhere you look, you see people grappling with the same impossible choice, and you begin to understand that this experience is both deeply personal and profoundly universal. The sun climbs higher in the sky, but the shadows don't seem to move. Time itself appears to be suspended, waiting for humanity to make its collective decision. You find yourself standing in front of the old courthouse, its clock tower frozen at 7 a.m. The building has stood for over a century, witnessing the ebb and flow of human drama, and now it serves as a monument to this moment of ultimate decision. You climb the steps and sit on the wide stone platform, looking out over your transformed town. From this vantage point, you can see the full scope of the great silence. Every street, every building, Every visible space contains people frozen in contemplation. Some are alone, like you, moving carefully through this new reality. Others remain perfectly still, perhaps paralyzed by the weight of their decision, or maybe still processing what has happened. You wonder how long this moment of choice will last. Are you racing against some invisible deadline? Or do you have as much time as you need to decide how to spend your words? You think about the people you love, the conversations you wish you'd had, the things you always meant to say, but never found the right moment for. Your parents, who live across the country, probably face the same terrible choice. Your ex-partner, with whom you parted on bitter terms 3 years ago. Your best friend from college, who moved to Australia and with whom you've exchanged nothing but holiday cards for the past decade. If you could reach them, what would you say? How do you compress a lifetime of love, regret, hope, and gratitude into 100 words or less? The weight of this responsibility is crushing. Every word must matter. Every syllable must carry the full weight of your humanity. You think about poets and writers who spent their entire careers learning how to use language efficiently, how to pack meaning into economy. Now, everyone must become a poet. Everyone must find a way to distill their essence into the briefest possible statement. The challenge is not just personal but artistic, not just emotional but intellectual. You must become the editor of your own soul. You stand up and begin walking toward the residential area on the other side of town, where your childhood home still stands. The journey takes you through neighborhoods you haven't visited in years, past houses where you trick-or-treated as a child, where you delivered newspapers as a teenager, where you learned to drive in empty parking lots on Sunday afternoons. Each location holds memories that now feel precious and fragile, like photographs that might fade if exposed to too much light. The great silence has made everything more vivid and more temporary. Your childhood home looks smaller than you remember, but it's well maintained. The current owners have painted it blue instead of the white you recall, and they've added a garden where your family's old swing set used to stand. You stand on the sidewalk and let memories wash over you. Birthday parties in the backyard, Christmas mornings around the tree that used to stand in the front window, the sound of your mother calling you in for dinner on summer evenings. These memories cost you nothing, require no words, but they fill you with a bittersweet understanding of all the moments that brought you to this impossible present. A movement catches your eye. In the house next door, where the Kowalskis used to live, someone is watching you from an upstairs window. It's a young woman, maybe in her 20s, and she raises her hand in a small wave. You wave back as she gestures for you to come closer. She opens the window and leans out slightly, her face serious and determined. You approach the house, staying on the sidewalk but moving close enough to hear if she chooses to speak. The counter in your vision still reads 100 words remaining, and you wonder what hers says. She points to herself and holds up 9 fingers, then makes a 0 with her other hand. 90 words remaining. She's already used 10 of her precious allotment. Then she points to you and makes a questioning gesture, asking how many you have left. You hold up 10 fingers, then make a 0, indicating your full count of 100. Her eyes widen with surprise and something that might be envy. She's been more careless with her words, or perhaps more generous. You wonder what she chose to say, what seemed important enough to reduce her remaining life by 10%. She disappears from the window for a moment and returns with a piece of paper and a pen. She writes something quickly and holds it up for you to see. I told my mom I loved her when this started. Worth every word. What will you say? The question strikes you like a physical blow. You've been so focused on conserving your words that you haven't seriously considered what message they should carry. The young woman has given you a gift more valuable than her remaining 90 words. She's shown you that the cost of speaking might be worth paying if the message matters enough. You gesture that you need to think, and she nods understandingly. She writes another note. Take your time. I'll be here. Then she settles into a chair by the window, apparently content to wait and watch over this small corner of the transformed world. Her presence is comforting, a reminder that even in this impossible situation, human connections can still form. Even without words, you've communicated something meaningful with this stranger who chose to spend 10% of her remaining life telling her mother she loved her. You continue your walk, but now with a different purpose. Instead of simply exploring this new reality, you're searching for inspiration, for the perfect way to use your allocation of words. You pass an elementary school where children and teachers stand frozen in various poses of learning and play. On the playground, kids hang from monkey bars and balance on seesaws, their laughter silenced, but their joy still visible in their expressions. In a classroom window, you can see a teacher pointing to something on a whiteboard, her students looking up at her with a rapt attention that only children can give. The sight of the school fills you with a new understanding of what's at stake. These children have the same terrible choice as everyone else. How does a 6-year-old decide what to say with their final 100 words? Do they even understand the concept of death well enough to grasp what's happening? Or perhaps their innocence is an advantage, allowing them to speak from the heart without the overthinking that paralyzes adults. You imagine a child using all 100 words to tell a rambling story about their pet hamster, or to ask why the sky is blue, and the thought both breaks your heart and fills you with admiration. You leave the school and walk toward the edge of town, where houses give way to farmland and forest. The rural area offers a different perspective on the great silence. Here, the frozen moments are more solitary, but somehow more profound. A farmer stands in his field, one hand shading his eyes as he looks toward the horizon. His pose suggests he was checking the weather, planning his day around the ancient rhythms of planting and harvest. Now he must plan something much more final, must decide what words will serve as his epitaph and his gift to whatever comes after. Near a small pond, an elderly man sits on a folding chair with a fishing rod in his hands. His face is peaceful, almost serene, as if the great silence is simply another natural phenomenon to be accepted and endured. A tackle box sits open beside him, its compartments neatly organized with lures and hooks and line. Everything about his posture suggests patience, the kind of deep calm that comes from decades of waiting for fish to bite and accepting that some days they simply won't. Perhaps he understands something about this situation that others don't. Perhaps he's already decided what he wants to say. Or maybe he's content to sit in silence until the moment demands otherwise. You find a large rock by the pond and sit down, letting the stillness of the rural setting wash over you. The water is perfectly calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Dragonflies hover motionless above the surface, their wings frozen mid-beat. Even the insects are part of this cosmic pause, this moment of universal contemplation. You close your eyes and try to imagine what the world was like before language, when humans communicated through gesture and expression and shared experience. There was a purity to that existence, a directness that has been lost in the complexity of modern communication. When you open your eyes, you notice something moving in the distance. Another person walking slowly across the field toward the pond. As they get closer, you recognize them as David, a man you knew briefly in college, but haven't seen in over a decade. He approaches cautiously, his face showing the same mixture of fear and determination you've seen on everyone else. When he reaches the pond, he sits down on another rock a few feet away from you. You nod at each other, acknowledging your shared predicament without wasting words on greetings. David pulls out his phone and types something, then shows you the screen. How many words do you have left? You hold up 10 fingers, then make a 0. He types again. I have 73. I used some early, before I understood. Stupid questions. Headache. You're smart to stay quiet. You want to tell him that it's not smartness but paralysis, that you haven't stayed quiet out of wisdom, but out of terror. Instead, you just nod and give him what you hope is an encouraging smile. He types another message. I keep thinking about my daughter. She's only 8, lives with her mom in Portland. I haven't seen her in 2 years. If I could call her, what would I say with 73 words? How do you tell a child you love them and goodbye and everything you want for their future all at once? The question hangs in the air between you, heavy with the weight of incomplete relationships and missed opportunities. You think about all the people in your life who don't know how much they mean to you. All the conversations you assumed you'd have later when there was more time. David shows you one more message. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're supposed to realize that we should have been saying these things all along. Then he puts his phone away and stares out at the water, lost in his own contemplation. The two of you sit in comfortable silence, sharing the burden of this impossible choice. There's something healing about not being alone, about knowing that someone else understands the weight of 100 words when they might be your last. The sun reaches its zenith, though it seems to hang motionless in the sky. You're not hungry or thirsty, despite having walked for hours. Perhaps physical needs are suspended along with time, allowing everyone to focus purely on the mental and emotional challenge of choosing their final words. You think about the practical implications of the great silence. What happens to the world when everyone stops speaking? Who will answer emergency calls, perform surgery, teach children, or maintain the infrastructure that keeps civilization running? Perhaps those questions will be answered when this cosmic test is complete. You leave David by the pond and continue walking, this time toward the hills that surround your town. The climb is gentle but steady, and with each step, you gain a better view of the area below. From this elevated perspective, the great silence takes on an almost biblical quality. The town spreads out like a diorama, every person visible as a tiny figure frozen in their moment of choice. It's beautiful and terrible, a snapshot of humanity at its most vulnerable and most potentially profound. You wonder if there are others like you, walking through this transformed landscape, trying to understand what's expected of them. At the top of the hill, you find a small clearing with a bench that offers a panoramic view of the valley. Someone has been here recently. There's a notebook left open on the bench, its pages filled with handwriting. You approach carefully and read what's written there. It's poetry, dozens of short poems that seem to be practice runs for the 100-word limit. Each one captures a different aspect of human experience: love, loss, hope, fear, gratitude, regret. The handwriting changes from page to page, suggesting that multiple people have contributed to this collection of potential final statements. One poem particularly strikes you. If these are my last words, let them be simple. I loved. I was loved. I tried to leave the world a little better than I found it. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I saw beauty in ordinary moments and tried to create some beauty of my own. I forgive those who hurt me and hope those I hurt can forgive me. Thank you for sharing this strange, wonderful, terrible, magnificent experience of being human. May whatever comes next be filled with the same possibility for love and growth and wonder. The poem is exactly 100 words, a perfect use of the allotment. It covers the essential elements of a human life without wasting syllables on unnecessary details. It's both personal and universal, specific enough to feel genuine, but broad enough that anyone could have written it. You wonder if this is what you're supposed to do: find a way to summarize your entire existence in 100 words or less. The task seems impossible, but reading these practice attempts gives you hope that it might be achievable. You sit on the bench and look out over the valley, thinking about your own life and what you would want to say about it. You've had love and heartbreak, success and failure, moments of pure joy and periods of deep sadness. You've traveled to places that took your breath away and spent quiet evenings at home that were equally meaningful. You've made friends and lost them, learned skills and forgotten them, accumulated experiences that seemed important at the time and others that only revealed their significance in retrospect. How do you compress all of that into 100 words? The answer, you realize, isn't to try to include everything, but to identify what matters most. What are the themes that run through your life? What are the values that have guided your choices? What do you want people to remember about you? And what do you want to say to the people you've loved? The 100-word limit isn't a punishment but a gift, forcing you to strip away everything non-essential and focus on the core of who you are and what you believe. You think about your parents, who taught you to be kind and curious. You think about your grandmother, who showed you that aging could be graceful, and that wisdom came from paying attention to small details. You think about your first dog, who demonstrated unconditional love, and your favorite teacher, who helped you discover a passion for learning. You think about the strangers who showed you unexpected kindness, and the friends who stood by you during difficult times. Each of these relationships shaped you, and somehow your final words need to acknowledge that debt. As the afternoon wears on, you notice movement throughout the valley. More people are walking around, exploring this transformed world just as you have. Some move with purpose, as if they've made their decision and are looking for the right place or audience for their final words. Others wander aimlessly, still struggling with the weight of the choice. A few have gathered in small groups, apparently communicating through gestures and written notes, sharing the burden of this cosmic test. The sight fills you with a mixture of hope and sadness. Hope because humans are still finding ways to connect, even in these impossible circumstances. And sadness because this might be the last time you see such gatherings. You climb down from the hill and begin walking toward the town center, where you notice more people have congregated. A main square, usually busy with shoppers and tourists, has become a kind of amphitheater. People sit on benches and steps, some writing in notebooks, others simply observing the crowd. There's an expectant quality to the gathering, as if everyone is waiting for something, or someone to break the silence first. You find an empty spot on the steps of the library and settle in to watch. A young man in his 20s stands up from one of the benches. He looks around the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as possible. His face is determined but peaceful, as if he's made his decision and accepted its consequences. He clears his throat, and the sound echoes in the unnatural quiet. The counter in your vision still reads 100 words remaining, but you know his is about to start counting down. He opens his mouth and begins to speak, his voice clear and strong despite the tremor in his hands. Mom and Dad, I love you more than words can say, but I'm going to try anyway. Thank you for giving me life and showing me how to live it with purpose. Sarah, you made me a better person just by loving me. I'm sorry we ran out of time. To everyone here, to everyone everywhere, remember that we're all connected, all part of something bigger than ourselves. Love more, judge less, forgive freely. Be kind to strangers, protect the vulnerable, care for the earth, make art, tell stories, sing songs. The universe is vast and mysterious and beautiful, and we got to be part of it. What a gift! The words hang in the air for a moment after he finishes. 100 words exactly, delivered with the weight and ceremony they deserved. As the last syllable fades, something extraordinary happens. The young man doesn't collapse or disappear. Instead, he begins to glow with a soft, warm light that starts at his heart and spreads outward until his entire body is luminous. The light grows brighter and brighter until it's almost too brilliant to look at directly. Then, in a flash that leaves spots dancing in your vision, he's gone. Not dead, not destroyed, but transformed into something else entirely. The crowd sits in stunned silence for several minutes, processing what they've witnessed. The young man's words echo in your mind. Love more, judge less, forgive freely. They're simple concepts, but delivered with such conviction that they feel like commandments. You realize that this isn't about dying at all. It's about transformation, about using your final words as a human to graduate to whatever comes next. The great silence isn't a punishment, but a commencement, a final exam before moving to the next phase of existence. An elderly woman stands up from a bench near the fountain. She's wearing a floral dress and a cardigan, and her white hair is pulled back in a neat bun. She has the look of someone who has lived a full life and made peace with its ending. Like the young man before her, she surveys the crowd with calm determination. When she speaks, her voice carries the weight of decades. I have been a teacher for 45 years, and if I have learned anything, it is this: every person has infinite worth and infinite potential. I have watched children grow into adults, seen them discover their gifts and overcome their challenges. I have been privileged to play a small part in shaping minds and hearts. To my students, past and present, remember that learning never ends. Be curious, be compassionate, be brave. To my family, you are my greatest accomplishment. To everyone, choose hope over fear, understanding over judgment. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Keep dreaming, keep growing, keep becoming. The world needs what you have to offer. Like the young man before her, she begins to glow as soon as her 100th word is spoken. The transformation is even more beautiful this time, perhaps because you know what to expect. Her light is different, warmer and more golden, reflecting the wisdom she accumulated over decades of teaching and nurturing. When the flash fades and she's gone, you feel not sadness, but gratitude. These people aren't dying. They're graduating, moving on to something greater, while leaving behind gifts of wisdom and love. More people begin to stand up, each one choosing their moment to transform. A middle-aged man speaks about the importance of protecting the environment for future generations. A teenage girl talks about the power of friendship and the courage it takes to be yourself in a world that often demands conformity. An immigrant shares words about the strength that comes from building a new life in a foreign land while honoring the culture you left behind. Each speech is exactly 100 words, each transformation unique and beautiful. You realize that you're witnessing something unprecedented in human history. Usually, people die alone, or with only a few witnesses. Final words are often lost or forgotten, meaningful only to those who happen to be present. But the great silence has created a situation where everyone's final words matter, where each person's transformation is witnessed and remembered by the community. It's both deeply personal and profoundly public, a perfect balance between individual expression and collective experience. As the day progresses, the transformations continue. Some people speak about love and relationships, others about art and creativity. Some focus on social justice and the need to care for those who are marginalized or oppressed. Others talk about the wonders of science and the importance of continuing to explore and discover. Despite the diversity of their messages, certain themes emerge: love, kindness, hope, connection, growth, beauty, justice, wonder. These seem to be the constants of human experience, the values that transcend individual differences and cultural boundaries. You notice that after each transformation, the remaining crowd becomes more thoughtful, more deliberate. People are learning from each other, refining their own messages based on what they've heard. The Great Silence has created an unexpected classroom where the curriculum is the distillation of human wisdom, and the final exam is your own transformation. You start to understand that your words don't have to be perfect or profound in some cosmic sense. They just have to be true to who you are and what you believe matters most. A woman about your age stands up near the fountain. She looks familiar, and after a moment, you recognize her as Emma, someone you dated briefly 5 years ago. The relationship ended amicably, but you've often wondered how she's been, what direction her life took after your paths diverged. Now you're about to find out what she considers most important about her existence. She looks directly at you as she begins to speak, and you realize she recognized you too. I spent too many years afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of letting people see who I really was behind the masks and walls I built. But love requires vulnerability, and so does friendship, and so does any meaningful connection with another human being. I wish I had been braver sooner, more willing to risk being hurt if it meant I could also risk being truly known. To those I pushed away because I was scared, I'm sorry. To those who stayed despite my walls, thank you. Life is short, even without cosmic countdowns. Don't waste it hiding. Be seen, be known, be loved. The risk is always worth it. Her transformation is particularly moving because you knew her, because you remember the walls she's talking about. You remember trying to get closer to her and feeling like you were always being held at arm's length. Now you understand that it wasn't about you at all, but about her own fears and insecurities. Her words feel like both an apology and a gift, a final piece of understanding about a relationship that shaped both of your lives in small but significant ways. The crowd is getting smaller as more people choose their moment to transform. You estimate that maybe half the original gathering remains, each person still wrestling with their decision. Some seem to be waiting for inspiration, others for courage. A few appear to be saying silent goodbyes to the world they're about to leave behind. You feel the weight of your own choice becoming more pressing. How long can you wait? Is there some deadline you're unaware of? Some point at which the opportunity will be lost? A child, maybe 10 years old, climbs onto the fountain's edge. She's small for her age and has to stretch to be seen over the heads of the adults around her. When she speaks, her voice is clear and high, cutting through the evening air with startling clarity. I wanted to be a veterinarian when I grew up because I love animals and want to help them feel better when they're sick. I also wanted to be an astronaut because space is really cool and there's so much we don't know about it yet. My mom says I can't be both, but I think you can be anything you want if you work hard enough and don't give up. I hope whoever comes after us will take care of the animals and explore space and be kind to each other. I hope they'll remember that being different is good and that everyone deserves to be happy. Thank you for letting me be a kid. The child's transformation is the most beautiful yet. her light pure and white like starlight. Her words carry an innocence and optimism that makes several people in the crowd wipe their eyes. She managed to pack dreams, advice, gratitude, and hope into her 100 words while maintaining the straightforward honesty that only children possess. Her message reminds everyone present that they're not just speaking for themselves, but for all of humanity, including those too young to fully understand what's happening. As darkness begins to fall, torches around the square ignite spontaneously, providing warm light for the remaining speakers. The transformations continue, each one adding to the collective wisdom being shared. A scientist speaks about the beauty of discovery and the importance of questioning assumptions. An artist talks about the role of creativity in making life meaningful. A nurse shares insights about compassion and the privilege of caring for others during their most vulnerable moments. Each person's 100 words feel like a distillation of their life's work and learning. You realize that you're one of the last people left in the square. Maybe 20 others remain, each one still grappling with their decision. The pressure to speak is building, not from any external force, but from your own growing understanding of what this moment represents. You're being given the opportunity to distill your entire existence into its essential elements, to identify what you want to be remembered for, and what wisdom you want to pass on to whatever comes next. You think about all the words you've heard tonight, all the themes that have emerged from humanity's final statements. Love has been mentioned most often, followed by kindness, hope, and the importance of connection. People have spoken about growth, learning, forgiveness, beauty, justice, and wonder. They've talked about protecting the vulnerable, caring for the environment, embracing differences, and never giving up on dreams. These seem to be the constants of human experience, the values that transcend individual circumstances and unite all people. A man in his 50s, wearing work clothes and heavy boots, stands up from a bench near the edge of the square. His hands are calloused and his face weathered, marking him as someone who has spent his life in physical labor. When he speaks, his voice carries the dignity of honest work and simple wisdom. I built things my whole life. Houses, schools, bridges, hospitals. I laid foundations and raised walls and put on roofs that would keep people safe and dry. It was good work, honest work, and I'm proud of it. But the most important thing I ever built was a family with my wife, Mary. We raised 3 kids who grew up to be good people, and they're raising kids of their own now. That's the building that matters most, not the ones made of wood and steel, but the ones made of love and patience and teaching right from wrong. Build something that lasts. His transformation carries the same warm, steady glow as his words, the light of someone who understood that the most important work happens not with tools and materials, but with time and attention and care. As he fades into brilliance, you feel the weight of his simple wisdom, building something that lasts, creating something meaningful that will outlive your physical presence. The man's words resonate with a truth that goes beyond construction and family to encompass any meaningful contribution to the world. Now only a dozen people remain in the square, and you can feel the end approaching. Each person seems to be making their final preparations, gathering courage, or fine-tuning their message. You notice an elderly woman sitting alone on a bench, her eyes closed as if she's meditating or praying. A teenager paces nervously near the fountain, occasionally stopping to write something in a small notebook. A middle-aged couple holds hands on the library steps, apparently having decided to transform together. The couple stands up first, moving to the center of the square, where they can be seen and heard by everyone remaining. They're probably in their 40s, and something about their posture suggests they've been together for many years. They've learned to move in harmony, to communicate without words, to share the weight of difficult decisions. The woman speaks first, her voice strong and clear. We choose to go together because that's how we've lived for 22 years. Through joy and sorrow, success and failure, sickness and health, we've been partners in everything. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. It's choosing to be patient when you're frustrated, kind when you're angry, generous when you're afraid. It's building a life with someone that's bigger and better than what either of you could create alone. To our children, this is our gift to you. Find someone who makes you want to be your best self, then choose them every day. As soon as she finishes, her husband begins his own 100 words, his voice blending with the echo of hers in a strange harmony. Maria said it perfectly, as she always does. Love is a choice, and I chose her every day for over 2 decades. I never regretted it, not once. But love isn't just between partners or family members. It's how we should approach everyone, every interaction, every moment. Choose love over fear, understanding over judgment, forgiveness over resentment. Life is hard and beautiful, and strange and wonderful, and we're all just trying to figure it out together. Help each other. Be kind to strangers. Take care of those who can't take care of themselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Choose love always. Their transformation is the most beautiful yet, their lights merging and swirling, together in patterns that seem to dance before exploding into a brilliance that illuminates the entire square. When the light fades, they're both gone. But somehow their presence lingers in the warmth that fills the air. Their synchronized departure feels like a perfect ending to a love story, a demonstration that some bonds transcend individual existence. You're now one of only 8 people left in the square. The weight of the moment is becoming unbearable, but you still know what you want to say. You've heard so much wisdom tonight, so many different approaches to the same fundamental challenge. Some people focused on love and relationships, others on personal growth and learning. Some talked about social responsibility and caring for others, while others emphasized the importance of creativity and wonder. All of their messages were valid and meaningful, but none of them feels quite right for you. A woman in her 30s approaches you cautiously. She's been sitting quietly near the fountain all evening, and you've noticed her watching the transformations with intense concentration, as if she's studying for an exam. When she's close enough to speak quietly, she looks directly into your eyes. "I've been watching you all day," she says, using 5 of her precious words. you're struggling with this more than most. Can I ask why? That's 17 words total, leaving her with 83. You're surprised by her willingness to spend words on a conversation with a stranger, but you're also grateful for the human connection in this surreal situation. You want to answer her, but you're still not ready to begin your own countdown. Instead, you pull out your phone and type a response. I keep thinking there's something I'm supposed to say, some perfect message that will make sense of everything. But maybe that's the wrong approach. Maybe the point is just to be honest about who I am and what I've learned. She reads your message and nods thoughtfully. That's exactly right, she says, spending 8 more words. Perfect is the enemy of true. Just be yourself. That's 75 words used, 25 remaining. Her generosity with her words to help you understand your own situation is both touching and instructive. She's demonstrating the very kind of selflessness and connection that many of the previous speakers emphasized. Thank you, you type. What are you going to say? She smiles and speaks her final 25 words. That kindness matters more than cleverness, that listening is more important than talking, and that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be gentle. Her transformation is gentle too, a soft glow that builds slowly and fades gradually, leaving behind a sense of peace and compassion. Her words echo in your mind as you watch her light merge with the darkness. Be gentle. It's such a simple concept, but it encompasses so much of what makes life bearable and beautiful. Gentleness with others, gentleness with yourself, gentleness with the world's fragility and your own limitations. Now only 6 people remain, and the pressure to speak is becoming overwhelming. You can feel the night deepening around you, though the torches keep the square bright and warm. Part of you wants to wait until you're the very last person, to hear every possible approach to this challenge before making your own choice. But another part of you recognizes that you're delaying not out of wisdom, but out of fear. Fear that your words won't be good enough, meaningful enough, true enough to justify the end of your existence as you know it. A teenage boy, maybe 16 years old, stands up from the library steps. He's been quiet all evening, occasionally scribbling in a notebook, but mostly just listening to the transformations around him. When he moves to the center of the square, his youth is both striking and heartbreaking. He should have decades ahead of him, time to figure out who he wants to be and what he wants to contribute to the world. Instead, he has to distill his entire potential into 100 words. I know I'm young and haven't experienced as much as everyone else who spoke tonight, but I've been thinking about this all day, and here's what I believe. Every generation thinks the world is ending, but it's not ending, it's changing. And change is scary, but it's also how we grow. My generation inherits a lot of problems, but we also inherit all the knowledge and tools and love that came before us. We'll figure it out, just like every generation before us did. Don't worry about us. We've got this. And thank you for giving us such a beautiful, complicated world to take care of. His confidence and optimism in the face of cosmic uncertainty is remarkable. His transformation reflects his youth, brilliant and quick like a shooting star. leaving behind a sense of hope and possibility. His words remind you that this isn't just an ending but a transition, that whatever comes after the great silence will be built on the foundation of everything that came before. The young man's faith in his generation's ability to handle whatever challenges await them is both humbling and inspiring. 5 people left now, including yourself. The elderly woman who was meditating earlier opens her eyes and looks around the nearly empty square. She stands slowly, her movements careful but determined, and walks to the fountain where she can be seen by everyone remaining. Her age is evident in her posture and pace, but her voice when she speaks is strong and clear. I have lived 93 years on this earth, and I have seen humanity its worst and at its best. I lived through wars and depressions, through social upheavals and technological revolutions. I watched my children grow up and my husband grow old and my friends pass away one by one. And through it all, I learned that the only thing that really matters is how we treat each other. Power fades, money disappears, achievements are forgotten, but kindness echoes through generations. Be kind to each other. Be patient with each other's flaws. Forgive each other's mistakes. Love wins. Her transformation is the most serene yet, a gradual brightening that seems to encompass not just her body, but the entire square. Her light is ancient and wise, carrying the weight of nearly a century of experience distilled into essential truth. As she fades into brilliance, you feel the presence of all the history she witnessed, all the changes she adapted to, all the love she gave and received. Her final words, "Love wins," hang in the air like a benediction. 4 people left. The weight of being among the final speakers is enormous, but it also brings a strange kind of clarity. You're no longer trying to say something that hasn't been said, or to find some unique perspective that will set your words apart from all the others. Instead, you're beginning to understand that your words need to be true to your own experience, your own learning, your own understanding of what matters most. The diversity of messages tonight has shown that there's no single right way to approach this challenge, no perfect formula for distilling a human life into 100 words. A man about your age, someone you don't recognize, but who has been part of the evening's gathering from the beginning, approaches the center of the square. He looks around at the 4 of you who remain, making eye contact with each person, as if he's saying goodbye to friends he's known for years, rather than strangers he met in the context of cosmic crisis. When he speaks, his words carry the weight of careful consideration. I spent most of my life trying to be someone else, trying to meet other people's expectations of who I should be and what I should want. I wasted years pursuing things that didn't actually matter to me because I thought they were supposed to matter. I wish I had learned sooner that authenticity is more valuable than approval, that being true to yourself is more important than being impressive to others. Don't live someone else's life. Don't chase someone else's dreams. Figure out who you really are and what you really care about, then have the courage to live accordingly. Your authentic self is your greatest gift. His transformation reflects his hard-won self-knowledge, a steady glow that builds with confidence and purpose. As his light fades, you realize that his message resonates deeply with your own struggles. You've spent so much of your life trying to figure out what you're supposed to say, what the right words would be, that you've lost sight of what you actually want to say. The pressure to be profound or meaningful or perfect has been getting in the way of simply being honest. 3 people left now, and one of them is you. The other 2 are a middle-aged woman who has been writing steadily in a journal all evening, and an older man who seems to be completely at peace with the situation. You can feel their eyes on you, along with the weight of all the words that have been spoken tonight. The square feels both empty and full, abandoned by those who have transformed, but somehow still containing their presence and their wisdom. The woman with the journal stands up and walks to the fountain. She's been writing for hours, apparently working and reworking her message until she's satisfied with every word. When she speaks, her words have the polished quality of something that has been carefully crafted and refined. I was a writer in life, someone who made a living with words, who believed that language could capture truth and beauty and meaning. I spent decades trying to write the perfect sentence, the perfect story, the perfect explanation of what it means to be human. But tonight, I learned that perfection isn't the goal. Connection is the goal. Understanding is the goal. Love is the goal. Words are just tools, and like all tools, their value comes from how you use them. I hope I used mine to bring people together, to help them feel less alone, to add some beauty to the world. If I did that, then I succeeded. Her transformation is particularly beautiful, perhaps because she understood so deeply the power and limitation of language. Her light seems to pulse with rhythm, like poetry made visible, before exploding into brilliance and fading away. As a fellow struggler with words and meaning, you feel a kinship with her approach. She spent her life trying to get language right, and in the end, she realized that the rightness came not from perfection, but from intention and heart. 2 people left now, just you and the older man who has been sitting peacefully through all of this. He looks at you with kind eyes and gestures for you to go first, apparently content to be the final speaker of the evening. The gesture is generous and somehow fitting. Throughout this entire experience, people have been showing kindness to strangers, sharing their most precious resource, not just in their final words, but in their actions and choices. You stand up slowly, your legs shaky from sitting for so long and from the magnitude of what you're about to do. The square feels enormous around you, though it's the same size it was this morning when this all began. You walk to the center, to the spot where dozens of people had stood tonight to share their final thoughts as human beings. The stones beneath your feet are warm from all the transformations that have taken place here, and you can almost feel the presence of everyone who spoke before you. You look at the older man, the only remaining witness to your words, and then up at the stars that are now visible in the clear night sky. Somewhere out there, this same scene is probably playing out in cities and towns all over the world. Millions of people facing the same impossible choice, finding their own ways to distill their existence into 100 words or less. You're part of something much larger than yourself, part of humanity's final exam and graduation ceremony. You take a deep breath and begin to speak, your voice steady despite the tremor in your hands. The words come not from the careful planning you've been attempting all day, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere more honest and immediate. I spent today trying to figure out what I was supposed to say. What would be meaningful enough to justify these final words? But I realize now that I was asking the wrong question. Instead of asking what I should say, I should have asked what I actually want to say. And what I want to say is this: thank you. Thank you for the chance to be alive, to experience consciousness, to feel love and wonder, and even sadness and fear. Thank you to everyone who shaped me, who taught me, who challenged me, who forgave me. I tried to be good. I didn't always succeed, but I tried. I hope whatever comes next gives us all another chance to learn and grow and love. As the final word leaves your lips, you feel the transformation beginning. It starts as warmth in your chest, a glow that spreads outward through your entire body. The sensation is not frightening, but welcoming, like being embraced by something infinitely loving and patient. You can feel yourself becoming lighter, less solid, more connected to everything around you. The boundaries between yourself and the rest of existence begin to blur in the most wonderful way. The last thing you see as a human being is the older man standing to take his turn as the final speaker of the night. You want to stay to hear his words, to witness his transformation, but you're already moving beyond the capacity for such earthly concerns. As your light grows brighter and brighter, you have one final thought, that this wasn't an ending at all, but a beginning. The great silence wasn't about dying, but about being born into something new and wonderful and infinite. The older man waits until your light has completely faded before speaking his own final words. His voice carries across the empty square, witnessed now only by the stars and whatever cosmic intelligence orchestrated this remarkable night. I have been waiting for this moment longer than anyone knows, he says, his voice carrying an authority that seems to come from ages of wisdom. I have watched humanity grow and learn and struggle and love for countless generations. Tonight, you have shown that you are ready for what comes next. Every word spoken here will be remembered. Every act of kindness and courage will be preserved. You chose love over fear, connection over isolation, hope over despair. You chose to transform rather than simply end. The great silence is complete, and the great awakening begins. Welcome to your new existence, humanity. Welcome home. His transformation is unlike all the others. Not a flash of brilliant light, but a gradual illumination that seems to fill the entire world. As his glow spreads outward from the town square, it touches every building, every tree, every blade of grass. The light continues to expand, reaching the neighboring towns, the cities beyond, crossing oceans and continents until the entire planet is bathed in warm, loving radiance. And in that light, something new begins. The people who transformed don't return to their old forms, but they don't disappear either. They become part of something larger, a collective consciousness that retains all their individual memories and personalities while also connecting them to everyone else who made the same journey. The great silence it turns out, was never about ending, but about beginning. Not about death, but about birth into a new kind of existence, where the barriers between individuals dissolve, while somehow making each person more themselves than they ever were before. In this new reality, communication happens not through the limited medium of spoken words, but through direct sharing of thoughts and feelings and experiences. Love becomes not just an emotion, but a fundamental force that binds everything together. The 100-word limit wasn't a cruel constraint, but a final lesson in the power of distillation, in the importance of identifying what truly matters when everything non-essential is stripped away. The planet itself begins to change, healing from centuries of damage, as this new collective consciousness applies its combined wisdom to the challenges that once seemed insurmountable. Wars end not through conquest, but through understanding. Poverty disappears not through redistribution, but through abundance created by cooperation on a scale never before possible. Environmental destruction stops not through regulation, but through a deep, shared understanding of humanity's connection to all life. And throughout it all, the words spoken during the Great Silence continue to echo, serving as guiding principles for this new phase of existence. Love more, judge less, forgive freely. Build something that lasts. Be kind to strangers. Choose hope over fear. Your authentic self is your greatest gift. Love wins. These simple truths, distilled from the complexity of human experience, become the foundation for whatever comes next. The Great Silence was never about endings at all. It was about beginnings, about transformation, about humanity finally growing up enough to become something more than the sum of its individual parts, while still honoring the unique contribution of each person. In choosing their final words carefully, everyone discovered what had been true all along, that consciousness is not bound by the limitations of individual bodies, that love is not diminished by sharing, and that the end of one kind of existence can be the beginning of something even more beautiful and meaningful. The 100 words that seemed like such a constraint turned out to be a gift, forcing everyone to identify the essential truths that would guide them into whatever came next. And what came next was not death but life, not ending but beginning, not silence but the most profound communication possible between conscious beings who finally understood that they were never really separate at all. In the end, the Great Silence taught humanity that words have power, not because they can perfectly capture reality, but because they can create connection between minds and hearts that might otherwise remain isolated. The limitation of 100 words forced everyone to focus on what truly mattered, to strip away everything non-essential and speak from the deepest truth of their being. And in doing so, they discovered that the deepest truth of every human being is the same: the capacity to love, to hope, to grow, and to contribute something meaningful to the vast, mysterious, beautiful universe of which we are all part. The transformed humans retain their individual memories and personalities, but they also gain access to the memories and wisdom of everyone else who made the journey. They can experience what it was like to be a teacher shaping young minds, a construction worker building homes, a parent raising children, an artist creating beauty, a scientist making discoveries. They understand for the first time what it truly means to walk in someone else's shoes, to see the world through different eyes, to feel the weight of different struggles and the joy of different triumphs. And in this expanded awareness, they find not confusion but clarity. The diversity of human experience, rather than dividing them, enriches them all. They understand that every perspective adds something valuable to the whole, that every life lived with intention and love contributes to the growing wisdom of consciousness itself. The great silence wasn't about judging who was worthy of transformation, but about giving everyone the opportunity to contribute their unique gift to the collective understanding of what it means to exist, to be aware, to choose love over fear in a universe that offers both possibilities in equal measure. As this new phase of existence begins, the transformed beings look back on their human lives, not with regret for what they've lost, but with gratitude for what they've gained. They understand now that every experience, every relationship, every choice was preparation for this moment of expansion and connection. The pain they felt as separate beings was real and valid, but it was also temporary, a necessary part of learning and growing that has led them to something more complete and satisfying than they could have imagined, while bound by the limitations of individual consciousness. The great silence is over, but its lessons continue to guide this new form of existence. The power of words to create connection, the importance of distilling truth from complexity, the value of speaking from the heart rather than the head, the recognition that love is the fundamental force that makes consciousness possible in the first place. These insights, learned in the final moments of individual existence, become the guiding principles for the collective consciousness that follows. And so the story ends not with death, but with birth, not with silence, but with the most profound communication possible, not with separation, but with connection that transcends every barrier that once seemed insurmountable. The 100 words that everyone feared would be their last turned out to be their first words in a new kind of existence, an existence where the boundaries between self and other, between individual and collective, between human and universe, finally dissolve into something more beautiful and meaningful than anyone dared to imagine, while they were still bound by the limitations of flesh and blood and the illusion of separation. The great silence was humanity's graduation ceremony, the final exam before moving on to something greater. And in choosing their final words with such care and intention, everyone passed with honors, ready for whatever wonders and challenges await in the next phase of consciousness, armed with the essential wisdom distilled from millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of civilization, ready to build something new on the foundation of everything they learned while they were briefly, beautifully, individually human. He had spoken 100 words, shaped not by fear but by clarity, left his lips like a breath he'd been holding his whole life. And then he had transformed. But what lingered was not his light, nor the warmth of his glow. It was the echo of his journey, now folded gently into the collective memory. And somewhere, far from that timeless square, a viewer sat still, watching the story unfold, unaware that they were never truly separate from it. The story played out not just across a screen, or inside the pages of a speculative future. It played in the quiet corners of the viewer's mind. The silence, the countdown, the transformations, they weren't science fiction anymore. They were allegories. They were warnings. They were hopes. The viewer began to understand this wasn't a tale about someone else. This was a tale about them. A mirror held still long enough to reflect everything that had gone unnoticed in the blur of their days. They watched the main character navigate the quiet, holding his breath not out of fear, but out of reverence. He hadn't wasted a single word. He walked through a world suspended in pause, a world that resembled their own more than they were comfortable admitting. The silence between the character and his neighbors, the frozen moments of life, they echoed realities the viewer had begun to normalize. The disconnection, the isolation, the shrinking attention spans. How often had they been surrounded by people, yet completely alone? The viewer considered the weight of words. The story demanded it. How many words had they tossed into the air like feathers, forgetting each had a shape, a consequence, a purpose? Words of impatience, words of carelessness, words never spoken because there was always tomorrow. But what if there wasn't? What if the 100-word limit wasn't fiction, but a metaphor for the preciousness of each interaction? The character's silence had not been passive. It had been sacred, observant, intentional. He had walked past his frozen world not with panic, but with curiosity, with grief, with love. The viewer realized they rarely moved like that. Their steps were often hurried, their conversations distracted, their intentions divided. The story didn't just ask them to imagine scarcity. It asked them to remember what abundance they had ignored. He had seen beauty in stillness, in honeysuckle vines, in a frozen jogger mid-stride, in a child reaching for a school bag that would never be lifted again. And the viewer, from the safety of their present day, realized they too had passed such moments unseen. A lover's glance, missed while scrolling. A parent's advice, half heard while replying to a message. A friend's silence, mistaken for peace when it was really a cry. What if they had been paying attention? It dawned on them that transformation didn't require a cosmic silence. It required awareness. It required choice. That perhaps the 100 words were not a sentence, but an invitation to speak with meaning before silence chose them first. The viewer placed their hand near their chest, as if to feel their own counter ticking quietly, invisibly. They remembered the people they hadn't called, the truths they hadn't voiced, the forgiveness they hadn't offered. They thought of the arguments they won, but the relationships they lost. They thought of love unspoken because of pride, because of fear, because of timing. And they wondered how many words had gone unsaid that might have saved something sacred. In the story, the people who transformed did not die, they evolved. They let go of the need to prove, to defend, to control. They spoke only when it mattered most, and their words were like keys unlocking doors to something beyond themselves. The viewer could almost feel those doors now, rusted shut from disuse. What would it take to open them? The silence of the great silence was not absence. It was concentration, focus, A world stilled so that every whisper became thunder. Every word became a bridge. The viewer looked around their space, familiar, cluttered, buzzing with distractions. When had they last paused long enough to hear what their own heart was saying? They closed their eyes. What were their 100 words? Not to be written for likes or shared on a platform. Not to be clever or right or quotable, but to be true. If they had only 100 left, what would they say? Would they call their mother? Tell her she was enough? Would they write one last letter to a friend who no longer spoke to them? Would they whisper an apology into the dark and hope the echo found its way? Would they stand in front of the mirror and forgive themselves? The viewer breathed slowly, the thoughts settling over them like fresh snow. The great silence, it seemed, wasn't a prophecy of a distant future. It was already happening, quietly, in every ignored conversation, every half-hearted word, every truth unspoken. Every moment they chose convenience over connection, they had been practicing for this future, not rehearsing transformation, but delaying it. The man in the story had watched others speak their final truths, children, elders, lovers, strangers. Each one had revealed not just what mattered to them, but what they believed mattered to humanity. Kindness, curiosity, growth, love. The viewer saw their faces now, etched in memory. It wasn't fiction. It was blueprint. There was a quiet revelation. If everyone in the story had been given 100 words to transform, then perhaps every person alive today still has theirs waiting. Not counted, not limited, but just as precious. The viewer stood, finally, from where they had been sitting. The story had ended, but they were still here, still breathing, still capable of speaking, still capable of choosing. And for the first time in a long while, they chose silence. Not the silence of avoidance, but of reverence. They would not rush to fill the air again. They would wait, listen, observe, not to mimic the character they had followed, but to honor the spirit of what they now understood. Transformation was not about glowing. It was about seeing. And now, finally, they did. You sit in silence now, not because someone asked you to, but because something inside you finally grew quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from peace, not yet, but the kind that precedes truth. You are not reading a story anymore. You are remembering. You are remembering every time you spoke without meaning it. Every time you meant something but never said it. And now you can feel it, can't you? That soft ache behind the ribs. That knowing. That weight. You've lived your life surrounded by words. You've bathed in them, worked with them, tossed them out like coins at a parade, never thinking they'd run out. But words aren't infinite. Not really. Not the ones that matter. You know this now. The story was fiction, but it wasn't. It was a mirror. A quiet one, held to your face while no one else was watching. You've said things to win, things to end fights, things to make people laugh, even when you were breaking. You've rehearsed lines for interviews, practiced jokes for first dates, memorized apologies without meaning them. You've whispered dreams only when no one was around to hear them. You've said, "I'm fine," so many times you almost started to believe it. Almost. But you know better now. And because you know, you can't go back. You can't pretend your words don't matter. You can't say, "It was just a joke," when the hurt lingers. You can't shrug off, "I didn't mean it," when you did. You can't avoid saying, "I'm proud of you," just because it feels awkward on your tongue. You can't wait to tell them you love them until some milestone makes it socially acceptable. You've run out of time for empty. So what do you do now? You start over. You start by paying attention. The next time someone asks you how you're doing, don't lie. Don't perform. Pause. Answer. Honestly. Even if it's just, "I'm tired." Even if it's, "I don't know." Give them something real. Let your words be windows, not mirrors. Let people see you. Then you reach out. You message someone you thought about but never followed up with. Not to catch up, not to network. Just to say, "You crossed my mind." That's it. That's enough. That single sentence could be the rope that pulls them back from the edge. You look your parents in the eyes and you ask them about their lives, not their opinions, not their schedules, their lives. Ask them what scared them when they were your age. Ask them what they regret. Ask them what they miss. And then listen like it's the most important thing you'll ever hear. Because maybe it is. You think about your first love, not to rekindle, not to reopen old wounds, but to ask yourself, did I ever really tell them what they meant to me? Did I say thank you for teaching me something, even if it ended badly? Did I leave with kindness or just absence? You stop saving beautiful things for later. That poem you wrote? Share it. That compliment you thought? Say it. That apology you've been sitting on for years? Deliver it. Stop waiting for the right time. There is no such thing. There is only now. You rewire the way you talk to yourself. You stop calling yourself stupid when you mess up. You stop saying, "I'm a mess," every time you feel human. You replace those phrases with compassion, with curiosity, with truth. You say, "I'm learning." You say, "This is hard, but I'm trying." You say, "I don't know what I'm doing, but I still deserve to be here." You use your voice like it matters, because it does. In meetings, in friendships, in conflict, in love. You stop apologizing for speaking clearly. You stop filling silence with noise. You let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. You give compliments without disclaimers. You ask for what you need without shrinking. You say, "That hurt," instead of "It's okay." You say, "I love you," even if it scares you. And then, when it gets hard, and it will, you keep going. Because some people won't know what to do with your clarity. Some people are so used to echo chambers, they won't recognize your truth as music. That's okay. You're not here to impress everyone. You're here to connect. And connection requires risk. It requires discomfort. It requires you to stand naked in your truth and say, "This is who I am. This is what I feel. This is what I want to say." There will be days when it feels easier to go back to silence, to autopilot, to banter and buffering. On those days, remember the story. Remember the boy who used his last 100 words to say something beautiful. Remember the woman who turned her apology into light. Remember the child who dreamed aloud. They weren't extraordinary. They were just brave, like you. You are not running out of words, but you are running out of excuses. And one day, you'll look back at your life. Not the job titles, not the vacations, but the moments. The ones where you said something that mattered, or didn't. A singe of you that rebuilt a bridge. This sin love you that healed a wound. The I believe in you that changed a life. Or the words you swallowed and the silence that followed you. So don't wait. Say it now. Write it now. Shout it if you must. Whisper it if you're afraid. Just don't waste your words. You don't need a countdown to live with intention. You just need to begin. And you just did.